Did you know that 1 in 100 people suffer from depression? Many of them consider suicide. 14 in 100 people are crippled with anxiety or fear. Alcohol and drug abuse continues. Divorce and domestic abuse continues, with the children paying the greatest cost. 60 in 100 people profess they don't know Jesus. For these reasons and more, Pamela Christian brings you Faith to Live By to explore life issues from the Christian perspective to help you gain the victory to live the abundant life available through faith in Jesus Christ.
Hi, I'm Pam Christian, and you're watching Faith to Live By. If you haven't watched the show before, then I'd like you to know that what I seek to do is to tackle difficult problems, real life issues from the Christian perspective. My goal is to help you avoid the problem if possible, or to get through it if you've already encountered it. It may not be a problem that you personally have experienced, but certainly someone you love has. And our goal is also to help the church to be able to better minister to those in their pews. Today's topic is, in one sense, about renewing your mind, but not renewing our minds in the way the Apostle Paul instructs us in Romans chapter 12, verse 2. In that verse, we are instructed to not be conformed to the patterns of the world, but to be transformed by the renewing of our mind. And in context, the Apostle Paul encourages us to change our thought processes and our focus so that we can prove what is the good and acceptable, perfect will of God. If you have ever experienced sleep deprivation, then you know the very real and even frightening experiences that can result from lack of sleep. A recent report from the Center of Disease Control and Prevention estimated that over 1/3 of adult population in the United States sleeps less than the recommended minimum amount of 7 hours each night. The article is entitled, "The Epidemic of Sleep Deprivation, a Modern Curse." And sleep deprivation issues are not unique to the United States. It's recognized as a global concern. Let's watch a video now with Felicia Dilbert, who would agree that sleep deprivation feels very much like a curse.
Hello, hello. Sending you lots of sunshine from Tallahassee, Florida. My name is Felicia Dilbert, and I am here to talk with you about my testimony of how I went from hurting to healing and the dynamic impact that Dr. Saundra Dalton Smith's book had in my journey. I love the title, Sacred Rest. Now let me share with you, back on May 2nd of 2017, after months of suffering and dealing with fatigue and lots of stress due to my mother's diagnosis of stage 4 lung cancer. On May 2nd, I was diagnosed with diabetes 2. A1C was 11, nearly 11. The next day, unfortunately, sadly, heartbreaking, all of my family gathered together to bury the love of our life, our mother, Phyllis Marie Williams. I have never been through so much pain, suffering, and sadness. I'm here to tell you, I said a prayer, and I said another prayer, and another prayer, and the Lord is faithful. And I specifically asked for support and also resources to help me live on, thrive on, through the will of God somehow. I am excited to share that this book, Sacred Rest, has taught me how to rest and has taught me fundamental, practical lessons on how to rest and why rest is so important, because it helps you connect with the Lord even deeper. Dr. Saundra, thank you for writing this book. Now, in chapter 2, she talks about how rest is a second chance and how it causes you to be still and seek to know God. And Lord knows I needed to know Him deeper. I also love how she says rest is about replenishing, restoration, and renewal. And that it's an opportunity to put back in order anything that has shifted out of alignment with God's best. And in the place of anything, I inserted loss and also illness. I love how in the 23rd Psalm, the Lord says, The Bible states, He leads me beside quiet waters. He restores my soul. I'm here to tell you, healing is possible, and it takes a number of different things to get there. I'm happy to say I had great doctors. I have an awesome husband, Louis Dilbert, wonderful support from friends, and also a dynamic tool that has provided specific steps on how to rest. Reverend Pamela Christian, awesome job on offering this topic, renewing the mind. God bless you all, ladies. Take care.
Wow, I want to thank you, Felicia, for sharing your video and your testimony. I know it's going to help a lot of people. And to think that you had sleep disorders with issues and then losing your mom and how that compounded everything, it was a lot. I want to thank you, and we're looking forward to helping you and many other people with today's program. In studio with me to help us learn more about the cause and effects of sleep deprivation is Dr. Saundra Dalton Smith. Dr. Smith is an author, a speaker, and a board-certified internal medicine physician. She has an active medical practice near Birmingham, Alabama, and Dr. Saundra is a national and international media resource on the mind, body, and spirit connection, and a top 100 medical expert in Good Housekeeping's book, Doctor's Secrets. She has been featured in many media outlets, including Women's Day, Red Book, First for Women, MSNBC, and Prevention. She is the author of Set Free to Live Free, Come Empty, and her newest release is Sacred Rest, Recover Your Life, Renew Your Energy, Restore Your Sanity. Thank you for being here, Dr. Saundra. I'm so pleased.
Thanks for having me.
You know, I was really surprised to learn that sleep deprivation is actually a global epidemic.
It certainly is. It affects so many people on such a huge level.
And for different reasons. People have sleep problems for different reasons. You can't put it all under one label, can you?
That's so true.
Okay. Well, Dr. Saundra, I read that the 7-hour rule, which I mentioned a little bit ago, for human sleep is not just another medical factoid. It's a concrete conclusion by a panel of experts based on a review of over 5,000 published scientific studies on the topic, and that sleep deprivation is actually associated with a shorter lifespan, increased risk of several health conditions, including heart disease, type 2 diabetes, cancer, according to the previously mentioned article. And I know, I like my 7 to 8 hours sleep and sometimes 9 hours of sleep each night, but for millions of people worldwide, getting a healthy amount of sleep is really a major problem. Why do so many people suffer with this problem?
It's a huge issue. I think for most people, we have difficulty understanding that sleep deprivation has a huge effect on every part of our lives. If we look at some of the most recent studies, the Sleep Foundation actually found that over 45% of Americans actually have difficulty sleeping at least one day each week.
Wow.
So that's a large population that's affecting everyone.
Right.
And I think one of the big issues is so many of us, we think that sleep, just any sleep will do. But really it has to do with our sleep quality. Our sleep has to go through all of the 5 stages of sleep for us to really feel well rested, energized, and to have that I'm ready to go when we wake up in the morning.
Okay, all right. Well, we're certainly going to be exploring more about all of this, but we should explain that sleep disorders are deviations of routine, typical sleep patterns that affect both sleep quality and sleep quantity. Trouble falling asleep, sleeping fitfully rather than soundly, odd or disruptive behaviors during sleep, these and other sleep disruptions actually happen to every one of us occasionally. But when the difficulty or the poor sleep quality and insufficient or excess sleep becomes a frequent routine or a prolonged pattern, really, it's more like sleep disorder issues. And as I understand it from my research, and help me if I'm mistaken here because I need you as the expert, dozens of sleep disorders exist, and some of the more common are listed in just a moment, and some are very rare, but disorders would include, and this will be on your screen for you as well, waking often during the night, waking feeling tired, not sleeping enough, sleeping too much, sleeping at the wrong times, like at work, daytime tiredness and fatigue that is pronounced and interferes with daily activities, mood swings, troubles with focus, attention, memory, and this one really surprised me, snoring.
Yes.
Snoring is considered a sleep disorder?
It is, because a lot of people who snore actually have sleep apnea.
Wow.
And sleep apnea has a huge effect on your entire body, including your heart and your lungs, respiratory system. So it's huge. And even more so than that, when you look at sleep deprivation and really just general sleep disorders, people who don't go into stage 3 and stage 4 of sleep, that really deep, restorative, high-quality sleep, also have things like difficulty concentrating. We all have that coworker who we say, well, they're so lazy, they don't seem to have motivation or drive. Some of those people are sleep deprived.
Wow.
That's why they don't have that extra energy. We can see it in teens. Really, the age is insignificant. It's the ability to have the energy to live life to its fullest. And that's where we see the problems with productivity, with people putting kind of that extra effort into their job. They don't have it to give. They're tired.
Mm-hmm. And I know a lot of the coping mechanisms like caffeine, they really don't help.
They don't. They're a crutch. They're something that we use to try to push through the day. No different than someone who's having a candy bar in the middle of the afternoon,
Right.
trying to have that extra little boost of energy.
Mm-hmm. Well, I know that the side effects of insufficient sleep are serious, and to help my audience understand the progression of events with prolonged sleep deprivation, I want to share this infographic that I found online. It's actually adapted from the Horizons news release and published by neurosciencenews.com. I thought it was very, very helpful. In a study with rats, within the first 24 hours, there were physical symptoms of being tired and lacking energy. Within a few days, there was decreased concentration, motivation, and perception. Then followed with short-term memory loss, increased level of stress hormones, and increased blood pressure. I've read where lack of sleep can actually lead to diabetes, obesity, immune, and digestive problems as well. After 11 days, according to this infographic study, the insufficient sleep study, subjects experienced a decrease in eyesight, speech difficulties, memory loss, and some hallucinations, especially at night. And within a few weeks, subjects experienced mood swings, paranoia, frequent hallucinations, and immune system failure. Now, I remember when I was in my 20s and I was doing what so many college students do, pulling all-nighters, and I needed to drive a long distance. And in the night, being very tired, driving on a monotonous highway, I had very frightening hallucinations. It was as I was approaching the overpass and I would go under it, it was as though the sides of the overpass were becoming monsters and coming out to get me.
Oh,
it was
my.
horrible.
Well, that we see the same thing in medicine. We have patients that come into the ICU. We have something called ICU psychosis. Just all the bells and whistles and activity that goes on with being sick in an ICU. They go into this psychosis simply from the lack of sleep. And we treat it by helping them sleep. We medically help them sleep in that situation because it's kind of a sleep or you're not able to heal. But it happens on such a smaller level just in our day-to-day lives. A lot of what you mentioned with the rats, with the motivation, the concentration, all of those things, if you talk to the general population, that's half of us. We feel like that on a regular basis, like we don't have that extra little oomph that we need.
And getting back to this, I didn't like it when my kids would turn to the energy drinks when they were in their teen years. And it turns out my mother's intuition was pretty accurate, because I understand that a study has actually proven that these as you said, crutches really don't help us. They actually can make the problem worse.
It does, because most of those energy drinks are caffeinated. That's the drug in them that's actually helping them stay awake. And unfortunately, caffeine is a drug, and so it stays in the system for much longer than most of us realize. Caffeine can stay in the system up to 6 to 8 hours after you drink it.
Wow.
So sometimes they're thinking, well, I just need that little extra boost for a couple of hours. But then when they try to lay down and get into the high quality sleep, the stage 3 and 4, their bodies won't allow them to go there because it's still fighting the effects of that drug.
It makes sense. If a person realizes that they are waking up tired, or they're tired throughout the day, or they're moody and such as this, what do you suggest that they do?
Well, we have to realize that sleep is not rest. And really, to get to higher quality sleep, we have to have higher quality rest. And most of us, what we call rest is not very restful. So when we say that we're going to hop in the bed, we can't expect our bodies to be any different than our cell phones or any other kind of thing that we use. There has to be a recharging. And that's really what sleep does. Sleep is that recharging that helps us have that energy. But it can't just be a quick, let me lay in the bed for 7 hours and that's going to be all I need. We have to have a build up to it. And I think that's where a lot of us fail.
Well, part of why I wanted to have Dr. Saundra on the program today is because of your newest book. I mentioned it at the top. Would you like to show the book? It's called Sacred Rest. And what's the subtitle?
Recover your life, renew your energy, and restore your sanity.
And I got to read this entire book before inviting you to be here. And I tell you, I thoroughly enjoyed the book. I highly recommend the book. I think it helps people understand the serious reality of sleep disorders, and to understand that genuine rest is more than overcoming insomnia. That came right from your book. Explain what you meant when you wrote that.
Because most of us think that sleep and rest are the same thing. And we think that if we could just get those 7 hours, then that would be sufficient, that you would feel better, you'd have great energy, you'd be able to do all those different things that you feel like you would do if you just had that extra sleep. And then when they force themselves to get it on the weekend, they find that does not solve this situation, that they're still tired. And so understanding that just fixing insomnia doesn't solve your rest deficit. It doesn't oftentimes solve your sleep deficit, because I can give you a pill that would knock you out, but that's not going to necessarily fix some of these other issues that are stressing you.
And that's because you mentioned the different types of sleep. And in your book, you describe the 7 types of rest. Please share with my audience what these 7 are.
The 7 types of rest are physical rest, mental rest, emotional rest, social rest, sensory rest, creative rest, and then we also have social rest and spiritual rest.
Okay, we get a pretty good idea of what these are just by the descriptions you've given them. But could you describe in more detail a couple of them that we may not properly understand in common?
Sure. I think the ones that are very easy for most people to understand are the physical and mental rest. We've seen and heard a lot about that. Emotional rest, a lot of women I find have a lot of issue with that. Emotional rest really is that people-pleasing tendency that some of us have. We may not even know that we're doing it, but if you have a job, or even honestly, stay-at-home moms have expressed this to me. If you have situations where you find that you're having to be inauthentic to live up to others' expectations, and so that could be being the soccer mom who's involved with everything versus being the CEO who has it all together. All of those are extra pressures on our lives, and it leaves us having this bit of inauthenticity that is a natural stressor. And so we have to have those times in our life when we are actually who we are able to be authentic, be ourselves, and have those people that we can share that with.
Right.
And then another one is sensory rest. So often with sensory rest, we're in environments that keep us under kind of sensory, a constant sensory overload. It depends on the environment, but let's say, for instance, with me in the hospital, there's all types of smells that are going on. Sometimes there's extra sounds that are going on. So when I leave my office or leave the hospital, sometimes I have to be aware of that those extra smells or sounds have kind of irritated me to some degree, and I have to have some time to just defuse those senses that have been overloaded. And then the last one that most people probably have not really heard about is creative rest. And there's so many studies out there that show that people who are around green or around water tend to have a deeper level of calm. And so the studies are evaluating why is that. And the reason is we're all created to enjoy awe and wonder. And that's the part of us that kind of looks at God and says, wow, what such an awesome God, that awe and wonder. And so sometimes just having those moments in nature or around even creative beauty. If you've ever been to like a concert or something where a piece of music was so beautiful, it may have even brought you to tears. That is the creative rest, being in creative environment and appreciating the beauty in itself.
And the creative rest is the one area that I really enjoy and does make me think of God. And I just find it is just so good for my soul. I feel so much better and renewed as a result of some creative rest. And there's a lot of ways to do that. Even walking along the beach is another way to do that. Now, you share in your book about a traumatic experience you had when your son was born and how that actually put you in motion to avoid rest. Could you briefly share a little bit about that?
Yes, my oldest son now is 13, but when I went into labor with him, there was a lot of fears, and so my mother died in childbirth, so that's where really the fears originated from. And so what ended up happening was I came up with this great birthing plan that I was going to use that was going to help me be able to kind of conquer my fears by being in control. And that plan fell through. As life would have it, I was not able to have a natural childbirth. I was going to have a C-section. So they gave me an epidural and walked away, and they were going to come back and start prepping me about an hour or so later. And something happened. I had some kind of unusual reaction to the epidural where I actually was numb from my neck down. So I'd fallen asleep, and when I woke up, I couldn't talk. I couldn't say anything. I was numb. I could not move my body. And by some miracle, my husband he was sitting by the bedside, and he happened to look over, and he could see the fear or terror in my eyes, and all I could do was move my mouth and say, I need help. And he was able to kind of understand something was wrong and got the doctors in. And when they checked, they could see that I was flaccid. I couldn't move. And the baby's heart rate was dropping. So then we went from everything's calm to now we're in a drastic situation for an emergency C-section. And being in that paralyzed state really made me start thinking that rest is the enemy. I never wanted to feel that again, to be in that situation where I felt so powerless. And so, rest really has a lot to do with trust and with being able to kind of release things out of our control. And so after that, I didn't really want to release things. I wanted to be kind of the woman in control and making sure everything worked out the way that I had anticipated.
So in a very real way, it was a traumatic experience that launched you into a sleep-deprived situation by choice or response, I could say, right? So
I pushed everything to the max. I wanted to make sure that my medical practice was the most it could be. I wanted to be the mom who could do it all. I wanted to kind of make sure that I had all of my ducks in a row and all my T's crossed and I's dotted. And so I lived a very high pressure, high performance, power type life. And I had a lot of goals, and I made sure I was meeting my goals. And really, it took me getting to the point of burnout before I realized that wasn't going to produce the fruit that I wanted.
Well, you have a number of actual real people stories in your book, which I appreciate because it really personalizes the topic and not leaves it just as an academic matter. But the story about Cynthia, who was addicted similarly to you to her business and overtly mentally preoccupied, is gripping. Cynthia's story, as much as yours, really was compelling. And I'd like you to just briefly share, and I do mean briefly because unfortunately we're running out of time. It goes so fast. But highlight a couple of the warning signs that Cynthia should have seen, because perhaps somebody in my audience is in the same situation.
Well, she was at the situation where her downtime was the time spent in her car as she was driving on the highway. And what ended up happening is she's gotten a major wreck. And so if you find that you feel like you have no downtime, no time for yourself, and you feel like rest is optional, then this absolutely is an issue you need to look at. Rest is not optional. It is mandatory. It is no different than sleep, but we have to see that the two are connected.
Very good. And you'll want to read the book and learn about Cynthia if you relate to being mentally preoccupied and busy and a type A personality. I also like that you have an assessment within your book. What kind of tired are you?
Yes.
And it's a quiz that you can take when you get the book to identify your issues and then get the assistance that you need, the help that you need to overcome your issues. What is something that you'd like to make sure is stated that we haven't yet covered?
I would probably say to make sure that you find out which of the 7 types of rest you are most deficient in. I have a free assessment online also at restquiz.com. And so I highly recommend going there, taking the quiz, and seeing which of the 7 you are most deficient in.
All right, that's good. Good advice. I truly believe that this is an important topic, and I want to thank you very much for being in studio to help us cover it.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. We have countless resources on my website as well, so I will make sure that that's available to you with the website information on the screen as you're watching the program right now. I do hope that you'll take advantage of the resources and the books and the materials that we get from our guests here on the show, because we do create every show. We produce every show with you in mind. We are always considering what kinds of problems are people dealing with and how can we help. And that means I'd like to hear from you. What kinds of issues are you dealing with? What kinds of problems that we haven't covered that you would like to see covered? You might even want to, as you saw at the beginning of the show, submit your video testimony. You might be selected to be part of the show, and I'd really welcome that. You can simply go to our Facebook page to do that. The address there is Faith to Live By TV. On Facebook, it's at Faith to Live By TV. And I also want to share with you that I'm also an author, and I'd like you to be acquainted with my books and the other works that I do. Please feel free to go to my ministry webpage. It's PamelaChristianMinistries.com, just spelled out, PamelaChristianMinistries.com. You'll also find about our Season 2 programs, which we're entered right now, the rest of the lineup as we have it planned on our FaithToLiveBy.com website. Again, that's FaithToLiveBy.com website. Well, thank you again, Dr. Dalton Smith, Dr. Saundra Dalton Smith, for being on the program with me and helping us understand a little bit more about sleep deprivation deprivation, and about your book. One last word about your book that can encourage people for something that they would be able to get out of it?
Absolutely. If you're someone who feels like you will never find the sleep that you need, that you've tried and you haven't been able to get to the point of waking up well rested, I challenge you to give me 30 days to try to help you become the person you can fully be and fully energized, with sanity intact and loving life, because you're actually getting the rest that you need.
Good words. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Well, that brings us to another close of another edition of Faith to Live By. I want to remind you that I really, really do want to hear from you. I want to learn more about you and about the specific topics you'd like to see on this program. Again, visit our Facebook page, visit our website, and also I encourage you to take the survey. On the Facebook page, I have 10 questions, it's really simple, that you can answer for me so that I can know more about you and really truly better meet your needs with our program. Additionally, I want to thank you for watching, and I ask you to be sure to tell your friends and your family about this program. It's always created with you in mind. I want to bring you content that will help you actually live out your faith, live the abundant life that Christ died for us. And again, please make sure to contact me. Let me know how I can help you, how I can pray for you. Please pray for the expansion of this ministry as well, and all of the work that's under PamelaChristianMinistries.com. Keep in mind that in addition to hosting this show, I'm also, as I mentioned, an author and a speaker. So if your church or organization would like to consider having me as a guest speaker, just use the contact form on my Pamela Christian website, and I'll be happy to respond to you just within a short order. So until next time, I pray God's blessings upon you. And if we can pray for you and your specific needs in any way, you just need to let me know what they are. If you're watching the show live, and you should see the prayer phone number that you can call right there on the screen. If you're on the home page with my site, with the archive programs, then simply scroll down and use the internet information there where you can provide how we can pray for you. Until next time, I ask you to remember, Christ died for us. The least we can do is live for him. Well, hopefully you had a chance to watch the broadcast that just aired right here on this network. I had the privilege of interviewing Dr. Saundra Dalton Smith. She's written this great book called Sacred Rest. Recover your life, renew your energy, and restore your sanity. I've read it, and I highly recommend it. With that in mind, I've placed it on our website so that you can get it, and I assure you, the way we're set up, that you'll get the best possible rate, online rate, for any of the books and resources that are on our site. There's a couple of things more I'd like to ask of you, and I really, really would like to hear from you, especially on Facebook, where I have 10 questions where I can learn more about you. It'll just take you a couple of minutes to answer the questions right there on Facebook. If you don't want to answer the questions on Facebook, jot the questions down and send me an email. I'm happy with that. Just write to me at faithtoliveby@PamelaChristianMinistries.com. If I know more about you, I'm able to plan more programs just like the one we just broadcast to help you and those you love. That's what we're all about. So let me hear from you, and be sure to get Dr. Saundra's book. Thank you.
The preceding program was brought to you by the Holy Spirit Broadcasting Network, HSBN Television.